Hello, my name is Dominic, and today let's look at the nation of Judah, and let's look at who Judah is in the world today. Before I continue, it is very important to note that our Father said that the children of Israel would number as the sand of the sea, that we would number as the stars of heaven. So what that means is that the children of Israel became billions of people, became over 2,000 nations. It also means that today, in this day and age, the children of Israel, as the Father has said, are to be found in almost every nation of the world. We are in every kingdom. Therefore, we are every color. We speak many different languages. And what our Father has said is that He would gather His children no matter where they are, whether it be in Europe or Asia or Africa. He would gather them unto His holy mountains, where, as He said, we will learn His laws and His ways. But today we will be focusing on the Americas, because the children of Jacob came by boat to the Americas as well. And we were coming by boat to the Americas as early as the time of King Solomon, and perhaps even before that. The reason is we were next door neighbors to the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians were the master ship builders and sailors and explorers of the ancient world. They built ships and pyramids even for the Egyptians. And these Phoenicians had already spread themselves to many of the coast of the world. These Phoenicians are the Canaanites that we read about in the Bible, because Phoenicia is in the land of Canaan. It is the nation states of Tyre and Sidon, and of many of the Canaanite cities and towns that we read about in the Bible. And so King Solomon knew about those lands that was the Americas. He knew that the Egyptians and the Phoenicians had already built pyramids in the Americas, and those pyramids, most of them still stand today in Central America, South America, even in North America as well. And so we also read in the Bible that King Solomon sent an expedition to the land of Ophir to get gold, and that expedition took 3 years. The land that King Solomon sent his ships to is to be found right here in the Americas. That's what Christopher Columbus believed, and that's what he wrote when he wrote to the King and Queen of Spain. He wrote that he had found in the New World the site where the New Jerusalem is to be built, the site where Solomon sent for to get the gold that it was used to build the temple, of Solomon, the temple that Solomon had built, as his father King David had instructed him, as a house for our Father. Now, the Americas then becomes very important, because today the nation of Judah is to be found right here in the Americas. Let's go into Genesis 49, and maybe that can help us figure it out. Verse 1, Genesis 49, verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. And so here we see that Jacob called all of his sons together, and he is about to tell them in turn, beginning with the oldest down to the youngest. He will tell each one of his sons what will happen to them in the last days. That is to say, in the days that we are in right now. So Jacob is prophesying, he is telling his sons how their nations will be faring, What will their state be in this day and age? And let's continue. Let's go to verse 9. Let's go to verse 8, where Jacob will be talking about Judah. Verse 8, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. So here we read that Judah is he who the other tribes of Jacob shall praise, and that his hand shall be in the neck of his enemies. It says, thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Verse 9, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as an old lion. Who shall rouse him up? Here we learn that Judah behaves as a lion, as a young lion, and that right when he is done with one prey, he rises up and grabs another prey, and he shakes him around a little bit. So this tells us that Judah is a nation that is quite capable of handling itself when it comes to war, when it comes to dealing with other nations. Verse 10, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. It says that the scepter shall not depart from Judah. That means just as King David is the king that was beloved of our Father, and our Father chose to bring the Messiah from King David, so too here we are reading that our Father picked Judah to lead, and Judah to be where he shall place his house. Because we read, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. Shiloh is the city where Lot was cast for the children of Israel. It was in Shiloh that with Joshua, our father gave the inheritance by Lot to the children of Israel. And it was also in Shiloh that the tabernacle of our father was built. It was built in Shiloh. So here when it says that a lawgiver shall not go from between his feet, Judah's feet, until Shiloh come, that means until the tabernacle comes. That means until the kingdom of our Father comes here to earth. And so Judah shall lead. And we read at the end of verse 10, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. This is very important because the gathering of the people is to Judah. The gathering of the people is not to Africa, it is not to Europe or Asia, and it is not to Israel. It is not to modern Israel, nor the land of ancient Israel, which is in Northern Africa or the so-called Middle East today. The gathering of the people, as we read here, is to Judah. It is not to Israel. Well, if we look at Israel today, we see that Israel is not a nation founded by the house of David, or a nation founded by the house of Judah or the house of Jacob. It is a nation of the Gentiles. It is a nation founded by the children of Europe and the children of Esau. And so the gathering of the people being to Judah is very, very important, because that will help us to know where we are to look to for the kingdom of God. It helps us to know where we are to wait for the kingdom of God to come, to descend here on earth. And Verse 11, we continue. Binding his foal unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. What is that talking about? Well, it's talking about the fact that Judah is the arm of our Father. Judah is the arm of our Father here on earth. The Father will use Judah, in particular, the branch of the root of Jesse, that branch of the house of David, our Father will use to shed light on the rest of the world. And he will use Judah also to destroy the other nations that refuse to serve him, who are in the world today. Who is it then that Jacob is talking about? Which nation of the world today is the nation of Judah that is being spoken of by Jacob in Genesis 49? We already said that it is not the nation that is in Israel today. No, that nation is to be found in the New World. In much the same way that you have England in the Old World and New England in the New World, you have Jersey in the Old World and New Jersey in the New World, you have the children of Jacob also taking their names with them as they moved from one continent to another. And so you had Judah and Jerusalem in the Old World, and you have a new Judah and a new Jerusalem in the New World. And the location of that Judah, the location of that nation, is the Isles of the Sea, the Isles of the Caribbean Sea. That nation today is best personified in the island nation of Haiti. But it also includes all the other nations of the Caribbean, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and the nations of the Greater and Lesser Antilles, including most of Cuba, all the way up to the Florida Keys, and all the way down to parts of Venezuela. This nation was peopled by the Taino, even before Christopher Columbus came to America. There was a nation here of a people called the Taino. Now, when the Europeans enslaved our brothers and sisters from the coast of West Africa and brought them over to the islands, most of those nations also were nations of the children of Israel. And so what you have today is the nation of Judah that is in the islands is personified in the nation of Haiti, the nation of Haiti. What we find is that the first place that Christopher Columbus landed when he came to the Americas was the island that the Native Americans called Haiti. The Tainos called the island Haiti. They also had another name for the island, and that was Quisqueya. And today we find that this island has the highest concentration of the children of Judah, and it was the center of the nation of Judah at the time that Christopher Columbus came over. And so when you have, when you consider the fact that all of the Americas was peopled by the children of Israel at the time that Christopher Columbus came over, then you can understand that the Judah of their day, the Jerusalem of that day, which is in the island of Haiti or Haiti, that place would have been, even back then, a place that all the other nations, all the other tribes of Israel would have flowed to, would have made pilgrimages to, because they know that that is the site of Jerusalem. Now, when you look at Haiti today, you ask yourself, does it fit? Does it fit with what is being said by Jacob when he was prophesying about the latter days. Well, let's go back and read the verses again. But this time, let's consider Haiti, and then let's go much more in depth into how Haiti fits in with Judah. Now, we know that the world has been turned upside down by the devil, the liar, the deceiver. That is why we see that we have the children of Esau in Israel today, and the devil wants the world to believe that those are the children of God. Well, the children of Jacob, the children of Judah, particularly the house of David, is to be found in the islands today. And the seat of that nation, the mount of that nation of Judah, is in Haiti. And the world has us believing that Haiti made a deal with the devil to get their independence, when we know that even as the Messiah himself has said, that a house cannot be divided against itself, or else it will crumble. Satan cannot be divided against himself, because his house will fall. It was not Satan that gave Haiti her independence. That was an act of the mighty Father, our Father in heaven himself. And he did that because Haiti is near and dear to his heart. He did that because Haiti is Judah. So let's think about that. Let's think about the fact that we have been lied to. And let's think about the fact that we all, including myself, have been programmed all our lives. From the time that we first started to notice our environment, we have been programmed to believe a lot of lies. And so you have to suspend your belief about all the lies that you have heard about Haiti, and consider how she fits in with prophecy. Genesis 49 verse 9. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. So here, Judah is being compared to a lion's whelp. That is to say, a young lion. And we read that from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. In 1791, Haiti behaved as a lion. Haiti behaved as a young, hungry lion, because in 1791, when the entire world was under European dominion, when you had large nations like China and India, and large continents like the Americas and Africa all being devastated, with their populations being enslaved, and with their populations being decimated by Europe, in the midst of all of that, Haiti was able to rise up like a lion. And Haiti, like a lion, grabbed Europe by the neck and defeated Napoleon in France. And which at the time, if we all remember, Napoleon was trying to become the greatest king that the world had ever known. He was bent on world domination. He wanted to create the first world, the first government for the entire world. He wanted to create a new world order even back then. And Haiti grabbed Napoleon by the neck and squeezed him so much that he had to sell Louisiana. He had to leave not only the island of Haiti, of Haiti, he had to leave all of the Americas entirely. He sold Louisiana, and that's what allowed America to more than double her size. Because of Haiti, America today is what she is. America would have been very different had not Haiti defeated Napoleon, had he not needed to sell Louisiana. Maybe we all would be speaking French. But Haiti behaved as a lion, and as an old lion, Haiti was able to throw Napoleon in France and break their chains of slavery. But that did not end there. Haiti also defeated Spain and booted them out of the other half of the island. And Haiti, in doing so, defeated the nation that had the biggest, the most holdings in the world, the nation with the largest empire in the world at that time. That was Spain. Haiti kicked Spain out of the island. And that's not all. Haiti also defeated England. England was at war with Napoleon at the time. And so England had invaded the island nation of Haiti. England had invaded Haiti. And Judah, the lion, also had to throw out England from the island. And that's not all. We know that both Napoleon and the British used a lot of mercenaries. They used a lot of German soldiers, a lot of Swiss soldiers, a lot of Polish soldiers. And Haiti had to defeat all of these troops individually. All of these nations, all of these Babylonian nations had to be defeated in order for the Lion of Judah to obtain her freedom. And so, yes, when we read that Judah is a lion's whelp, Haiti does fit, because Haiti did do exactly what you would expect from Judah, and that is to go for the threat, go for the neck of mighty nations and shake them into submission. Now, if we can recall that not only Napoleon a one world government, but that war also made England the power that she is today. Because what Haiti did was allow England the opportunity to defeat, the ability to defeat Napoleon. And today, England is the biggest empire. So Haiti changed history. And Haiti is the Judah that is being spoken of here. Now, let's continue reading. It says, Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down. He couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? Well, let's go back. It says, from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. We see that in the history of Haiti as well. Because after Haiti had defeated the three mightiest nations of Europe, while Europe had the entire world under submission, while Haiti once and for all put an end to slavery in the island of Haiti and Santo Domingo, Haiti did not stop there. In 1815, Simon Bolivar, who was the governor of New Spain being the northern part of South America, he went to Jamaica to try and get support in order to free South America from Spanish rule. An attempt was made on his life. He fled and took refuge in Haiti, just like much of the elite are doing today. They too are taking refuge in Haiti to hide from the wrath to come. But Simon Bolivar took refuge in Haiti. And the president of Haiti at the time, his name was Petro. Petro took him in. And during the course of a year and a half to 2 years, Haiti built an army of Haitian soldiers and primarily Haitian officers for Simon Bolivar. And Haiti raised a lot of money for him. And with Haitian financing and with a Haitian military, Simon Bolivar descended on to South America, went to South America, and drove the Spanish out of South America. As a direct result, Bolivia, Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, and 2 or 3 other nations are free as a direct result of the intervention of the Lion of Judah, that is Haiti and the islands of the Caribbean. And so we see here that from the prey, my son, thou art gone up, does apply to Haiti. Because no sooner had Haiti defeated the 3 mightiest nations of Europe, almost combined, and threw out all their mercenaries out of the island of Haiti, as soon as that had happened, from the prey, Haiti went up again and threw out throughout Spain from South America. Haiti went into South America and drove the Spanish out of South America, just like Jacob promised that the Lion of Judah would do in the latter days, that he would grow up as an old lion, even though he is a young lion. He is a young lion because the kingdom has not come yet. Once the kingdom comes, that's when the kingdom of Judah shall be in her mourning. That's when the kingdom of Judah shall truly begin. That's why we read here that Judah is a lion's whelp. She is a young lion. And this is what she did to Europe, even in her infancy. When Simon Bolivar saw how the president of Haiti and all the people of Haiti were so eager to help, when he saw how so much money had been raised, how so many officers had decided to give their life to his cause to drive out the Europeans from South America, Simon Bolivar turned to President Pétion and he asked him, "Do you want me to name New Spain after you?" Pétion said, "No, do not do that. Do this for me instead. In all the lands that you take my soldiers, in all the places that this money that I have given you goes to support you driving the Europeans out of, in all those places, you shall abolish slavery. You shall end slavery. There shall be any slave in any of the lands that my men and my money and my support and my guidance gives you." And Simon Bolivar said, "Okay." And so Haiti not only wanted freedom for herself, Haiti wanted freedom for everybody else. And so as a direct result, Haiti not only gave freedom to 5 or 6 nations of South America, Haiti had also ended slavery in all of those nations. And it was Haitian men that gave their lives for the cause of ended slavery. It was the Haitian people that knew that so long as there was slavery anywhere, it would be a threat to their safety and their security, even in Haiti. And so Haiti had caused 5 other nations to be free. Haiti had gone up from the prey. Right after taking out Napoleon, Spain, and England, Haiti turned around and also freed much of South America. That is why Napoleon, in his own mouth, said that he wanted to retake Haiti, not so much for the vast riches that Haiti had, but to stop once and for all the movement of the blacks that Haiti had started. This quest for freedom, this yearning, this desire to be free, this notion that we are not children of slaves, that we were not born to be slaves. Napoleon said he needed to stop this movement once and for all. And to him, that was more important than all the riches that Haiti provides. And Haiti provided a lot of riches. Haiti was the richest colony that any nation at any time in the world has ever owned. Haiti is what made Spain the greatest empire in the world at one point. It was the riches of Haiti that built Spain. That's because Haiti once produced most of the world's sugar, once produced most of the world's cotton, once produced most of the world's coffee. The riches of Haiti go on and on and on. Haiti also built France because Haiti was the richest colony. It was the riches of Haiti that allowed Napoleon to think that he could conquer the entire world. He was getting so much money from Haiti. So Haiti was very rich, but Napoleon knew that the threat that Haiti presented was even greater than that he was losing all of this money. He knew that because of Haiti, that people all over the world will want to be free. If it wasn't for Haiti, the nations of South America would not have been free. And if it wasn't for Haiti, you would not have had the great big slave revolts that you have had all over the world in India, in the Americas. There would be no Nat Turner if it wasn't for Haiti. And so Haiti was a big, big problem. And all the European nations banded together to try to keep Haiti down, suppressed, so that Haiti is unable to rise up. That is why the European nations of the world have made everybody in the world hate Haiti. But as we can see, Haiti clearly fits the description of a lion. Haiti behaved as a lion, and Haiti grabbed Europe by the neck and shook her terribly. King Solomon in Proverbs wrote, "There is nothing new under the sun." And in fact, there is nothing new under the sun. History has a way of repeating itself. That is why very often in the Bible we read of a story that actually happened to Israel, describing events that happened in the past. But that story is also a prophecy. It is also describing events that have not yet happened, events that are to come. And so, in the story of Haiti, in the story of the Haitian Revolution for freedom, we find that this too is written of in the Bible. In a way, this is something that had happened already to the children of Israel and already to Judah. If we go to Judges 1, the book of Judges, chapter 1, we will see that what happened in Haiti mimics something that happened to Judah a long, long time ago. But in order for us to get an understanding, let's go to Isaiah 43, verse 14 first. Because Isaiah 43, verse 14, helps us to identify who the modern Babylonians are today, who the modern Chaldeans are today. Let's go to Isaiah 43, verse 14. Thus saith the Lord, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. For your sake I have sent to Babylon, and have brought down all their nobles, and the Chaldeans, whose cry is in the ships. Those are the key words, whose cry is in the ships. This is telling us how we spot the Babylonians. How do you spot a Babylonian? They cry with their ships. That means that they plead their case with their ships. What kind of ships? Warships. If you remember, the first place that Christopher Columbus landed was in the island of Haiti, in the island of Haiti. When Christopher Columbus came over in 1492, he came over in 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. After he left, wave after wave after wave of ships came over from Europe, and all of these ships had one thing in mind: conquest, gold, and a total disregard for life, for any type of life, be it human, animal, or plant life. They came over and they decimated all the populations that were living in the Americas at the time. And they cried, they pleaded their case with their ships. They made war by coming over with ships, and they would threaten you by bringing their ships into your ports to let you know that they are out there. And so this is how you spot a Babylonian. His cry is in his ship, in his ships. Let's go to Judges 1, the first chapter of Judges, verse 1. Now after the death of Joshua, it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first, to fight against them? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand. And here we see something that happened to Judah many years ago in the old world, happened to Haiti not too long ago. The same way that Our father decided that Judah was to go up first to fight the Canaanites. Our father decided in the New World that Haiti, the Judah of the New World, is to go up first to fight the Canaanites, to fight the Babylonians. And that is exactly what happened. In 1791, Haiti, the lion, rose up and roared, and Judah ended up going up first to fight the Babylonians. Verse 3. And Judah said unto Simeon his brother, Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with thee into thy light. So Simeon went up with him, and Judah went up, and the Lord delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. And so that's the exact same thing that happened to Haiti. Haiti, the lion, went up first, and the lion grabbed Europe by the neck and shook her up a little bit. But Judah also at some time in Bolivar, that is to say Simon, that is to say Simeon, Judah, which is Haiti, took his brother Simon or Simeon, and together they fought off the Canaanites that was in South America. And so the story of Haiti being Judah fits right in line with what happened in the first book of Judges in a couple of verses. Judah, Haiti went up first, and Judah, Haiti turned to Simeon, and together they went and they drove the Canaanites, the Babylonians, out of South America. Now, the Haitian Revolution is truly the story of David versus Goliath. Little Haiti defeated Europe, the three mightiest nations of Europe. Just like in the Bible, when a young David, a young lion of the tribe of Judah, defeated the mighty Goliath of the Philistines, despite all of the armor, despite the shield and the long sword that Goliath had, David was able to defeat him with a slingshot. The same way, the house of David, that is the branch of the Messiah, that is Haiti, that is the island of Haiti and the Caribbean, Haiti was able to behave just like his father David. And Haiti was able to defeat Europe, to defeat France, Britain, and Spain, just like his father David had defeated Goliath. Let's go back to Genesis 49 and continue reading. In verse 10, that the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come. Again, Shiloh refers to the tabernacle of our Father, his house. And his house is going to descend, and his house is going to descend on the island nations of Judah that is in the Caribbean. His house, our Father's house, shall descend on Jerusalem. Jerusalem are the mountains of Haiti themselves, and that's where the house of our Father shall be. We read that, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. And so we are not to go to Israel. Again, Israel was not founded by the house of Judah. It does not have someone from the house of Judah as its founding father. Judah, the island nations that are in the Caribbean, that is where we are to go to. That is Judah. That is where the gathering of the people shall be. And let's dig deeper into the gathering, because that is a very, very important part of the prophecy that Jacob gave his sons, that the gathering is to be to Judah. So let's take time out to see how that will help us figure out who Judah is. Now, we all know that the Messiah is the son of our father. He is his prophet that will gather the people. But the gathering of the people is not going to be to a man. The Messiah is to lead the people. But the people are not gathering to a person. Now, the gathering is going to be something physical. How do we know it's going to be physical? Because there are many verses that says that our Father is going to gather the children of Israel from all the kingdoms that they are at, and he shall bring them unto the place where he has chosen to put his name. And so the gathering of Israel is to be led by the Messiah, but the gathering is to a physical location. And that physical location is the nation of Judah. That is where New Jerusalem, the daughter of Jerusalem, that's where the daughter of Jerusalem is. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy 5, and we'll begin at verse 5 so we can get an idea of what the Bible says about what I am talking about. But unto the place, Deuteronomy 5, verse 5. But unto the place where the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall ye seek, and thither thou shalt come. So our Father here in Deuteronomy 5, verse 5, he writes, unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there. Our Father said that he will put his name at the place where we are to gather to, even unto his habitation. And he calls that place his habitation. That is to say, where he will dwell, where his tabernacle shall be, where his house shall be, where the throne of the king of Israel shall be, where the king of Israel shall set his foot on here on earth. That place is where we are to seek, and thither thou shalt come. That is where we are to go to. And there at that place, that's where we have to wait for the kingdom to come. Because we know that when we pray that the kingdom comes. But it has to come to a physical location. And that location we are going to learn about. As we have already said, though, that location is Haiti. It says, and thither, verse 6, and thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes, and heave offerings of your hand, and your vows, and your free will offerings, and your firstlings of your herds and of your flocks. And there ye shall eat before the Lord your God. That's because our Father will be there when the kingdom comes. Our Father will dwell here on earth among men. And there ye shall eat before the Lord your God, and ye shall rejoice in all that ye put your hand unto, ye and your households, wherein the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. Ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day. That means that we will not do as the Gentiles, because today we are no better than the Gentiles, because we do and behave exactly the way the Gentiles behave. We read, verse 8, ye shall not do after all the things that we do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes. For ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance. That means that you are not, today, you are not yet in the place where our Father has chosen to put his name. At least if you are not in the island of the Caribbean right now. If you are not in Haiti, you will not be at that place. And even if you are at that place, the inheritance has not been given out yet. The inheritance will be given out after the day of the Lord, after the destruction of, after our Father has raised his name on up very high once again in the earth. and his name will once again be a dread among all the heathen. So it says, verse 10, well, verse 9 again, for ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God giveth you. But when ye go over Jordan and dwell in the land which the Lord your God giveth you to inherit, and when he giveth you rest from all your enemies round about, so that ye dwell in safety. Well, we do not dwell in safety now. We will dwell in safety when the kingdom comes. So our Father is saying that when we go to the land of our inheritance, then he will subdue all of our enemies. Then we will dwell in safety. Verse 11, then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. So our Father said at that time he shall choose this place, and his name shall dwell there. Thither shall ye bring all that I command you, your burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and the heave offerings of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vowed unto the Lord. And so in verse 5, we read, God chose out of all your tribes to put his name there. And in verse 11, we read, God chose to cause his name to dwell there. So there is a place that our Father has placed his name. And when he gives us another name for himself, his name shall be at that place as well. So our Father has chosen a place where his name shall be forever and ever. And he says to that place that we ought to go to. Now, a lot have been said about names, right? Our Father said we are to go to the place where he has chosen to put his name. But what is his name? There is a lot of ideas out there about what his name is. And in fact, the Bible has several at the name of our Father. Now, we know when he spoke to Moses, he said, I am is my name. But that is not the only name that our Father has been called. He has been called the Most High. He has been called El Shaddai. He has also been called names like jealous. For example, if you go to Exodus 34, verse 14, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. So right here in Exodus 34:14, we see that our Father called himself by the name of jealous. It says, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous is a jealous God. So our Father said his name is jealous. Again, we hardly call him jealous when we speak about him, but we speak about the fact that our Father is indeed a jealous creator. But how important is the name? The name is very important, but the name is not the most important thing to you. And so if we spend all of our time fighting over the name, we will miss a lot. We will miss a lot of information about some of the other names that our Father used that might be relevant to our understanding. So we cannot get caught up in one name. And the Father talks to us about that when he says in Psalm 138, verse 2, I will, this is David talking, I will worship toward the holy temple and praise thy name for thy loving kindness and for thy truth. For thou hast magnified thy word above thy name. Now the Messiah had said that man cannot live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of our Father. That is what David is talking about. He is saying that he said, thou hast magnified thy word above thy name. That means that if you obey all the laws and the commandments of our Father, then He will accept you. You don't have to worry so much about knowing for sure what his name is. Now, when we read Zephaniah 3, verse 8, our Father sheds some more light. He helps us to understand even better. Zephaniah 3, verses 8 and 9. Verse 8, therefore wait upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent. So our Father is saying that he will gather all the nations. This is the latter days. This is when Babylon shall be destroyed. This is when the kingdom shall come. So when that time happens, when the kingdom comes, our Father will turn to the people. He will turn to us a pure language, that we may call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. In other words, at that time, we will end the bickering. We will end the fight about which name is the proper name of our Creator. The reason why we will do that is because right now, every one of us think that we know what the name is. But that is not what's the most important thing. The most important thing is obeying the laws and the commandments of our Father. His word through the mouth of the prophets. That's the most important thing. But the name is important, because our Father now, even though the name is not the most important thing, the name is very important. That's why our Father said that he has made his name a renown, and his name is holy. So the name of our Father is very important. And as we have read in Deuteronomy 5, Israel is to be gathered at the place where our Father chose to put his name. We ought to go to the place that has the name of our Father. That means that the name is already there. That means that the place is already there. When Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas, he landed on the shores of Haiti, and he found that the inhabitants had named the island Haiti. We later learned that the inhabitants of Haiti had another name for the island, Quisqueya. When you look at both names, Haiti and Quisqueya, you find that each one contain the name of our Father. Each one has within it the name of our Creator. Haiti has A, and Quisqueya has Ya. Let's look at the word Quisqueya. Quisqueya is a Taino word, and if you look at a Taino dictionary, you will find that Quis means high, and that K means earth or mountains, and Ya is in the Taino the name of our Father. Ya in the Taino dictionary means the first cause or the beginning, and their creator they called Yahya. So when you consider the word Quisqueya and the definition of the different parts of the word, you find that Quis means high, K means land or mountains, and Ya means the creator. So the word Quisqueya means the high earth of the creator, or the high mountains of the creator. Quisqueya, the high mountains of the creator. When you look at the word Haiti, you will also find that the word Haiti has the word A. The word A means father, in much the same way that the word Yah means father. Judah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of these words end in AH. And all of these words means God something. For example, Isaiah, God is my salvation. In each one of these words, it is the component AH that represents our Father, that represents God, our Creator. The same way, Haiti, being a child of Israel, Haiti, being of the nation of Judah, has within its name Hebrew words, Hebrew components of words. I for father and et for with me. How do we know that et means with me? If you go to Proverbs 30, verse 1, you will see the word Ethiel. The word Ethiel means God is with me. Eti means with me. El means God. Ethiel, God is with me. In much the same way, the name of Haiti, the proper name of Haiti, Iet, means God is with me. And so when you look at the word Iet and you look at the word Kiskeya, you see that indeed each one has the name of our Father. Our Father has chosen to put his name in the island nation of Iet. Now, how about the word Haiti? Well, Haiti is an anglicized form of the word Iet. Just like Armageddon, you add an H to go from Armageddon to Harmageddon. You add an H to go from IUT to Haiti. But if you look at a dictionary, you will see that Haiti means land of mountains. Now, that's not really what it means. That was borrowed from the word Kiskeya. And if you are a person that grew up in Haiti and went to school in Haiti, you will know that the word IUT, you were taught anyway, that the word IUT means land that is high and mountainous. In other words, the high mountains. But again, that is not the proper definition of IUT. That was borrowed from the word Kiskeya, borrowed in a clever way to leave the word Yah out of it and thereby mislead us into believing that IUT or Haiti means land of mountains. But in fact, IET means God is with us. Kiskeya means land that is high and mountainous of our Father, Yah. And so, Haiti does meet that criteria. It is a place that our Father has chosen to put his name there. And he put his name in two of the names that Haiti is known by. Now, let's go to Psalm 68, verse 4. Because in Psalm 68, verse 4, it says, "Sing unto God, sing praises to his name, extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Yah, and rejoice before him." And in verse 5, "A father of the fatherless and a judge of the widows is God in his holy habitation." So Psalm 68 gives us a name for our Father. And in the King James Version of the dictionary, it says J-A-H. Before that J used to be a Y. It is more properly a Y. It is Y-A-H. So David is telling us to sing praises to our Father's name by name, Yah. And in verse 5, Yah is described indeed. That is the definition of Yah. Yah means Father. And the same way, Ah means Father. Yah, according to David, means Father. And we see that the Messiah also use the term father a lot when he is talking about our creator. He always talks about him as being his father, as being our father. We are his children. We are his creation. He created us. So therefore he is a father to us, and we are his children. And as children, even today, any little kid, any small child that you point to their parent and you ask them who's that, that child will say mama or papa. That child will say mother or father. That's because that is how children call their parents. That is how a child calls his father, father or papa. In the same way, the Messiah always referred to our Creator as the Messiah in the language of the Arameans of the day, he said Abba, and Abba means father. In ancient Hebrew, you also have AB that means father. But when you're talking about the Creator, when you're talking about our Father in heaven, the prophets use the word AH, and they use the word Yah. And even in the construction of the word AH, you see the letter A, which is the beginning of things. Aleph, the Alpha, the beginning. And you see the letter H, which some have said represents the breath of our Father. Because more than anything, our Father is the beginning of everything, and He is a living Father. He is. That's why He said that I am. Our Father has said Himself, He swears that He lives forever. Our Father said, I'll raise my hand up to heaven, that I live forever. So our Father has never died. He has always existed. He never came to earth to die, because He is. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is a living Father. He is a real Father, and He is the King of Israel. And so right here in Psalm 68 verse 4, we see that that David called our Father Yah. And we know in Exodus 34:14, our Father called Himself jealous. When we read Exodus 34:14, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. I bring that verse out to say that our Father has gone by more than one name. But there is a name that's very important. And that name is the name that a child, that is Israel, has for his Father, that is our Creator. And that name is Father. That name is Yah. That name is Ah. And that's the name that our Father chose to put in the islands of the sea, in the Caribbean islands, in the island nation of Haiti, to show that His name is there. So He put Ah in Haiti, which means God or our Father is with us, and He put Yah in Kiskeya to show that it is the high lands of our Father, or the mountains of our Father, are to be found right there in Haiti. Now, let's go to verse 29 of the same Psalm 68. It goes, because of thy temple at Jerusalem shall kings bring presents unto thee. So David is telling us that the temple of our Father, the temple of Yah, shall be in Jerusalem, shall be in Judah. The tabernacle shall be in Judah. In Psalm 122, we read, I was glad, verse 1, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together, whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, unto the testimony of Israel, to give thanks unto the name of the Lord. So again, David is placing the place that the tribes ought to go to as a place that has the name of our Father. Now, Mark 11, verse 1, where we read, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." Well, the rod out of the stem of Jesse is, as many of us believe in the Christian world, that branch is the Messiah, but it is also the nation of the Messiah. And the nation of the Messiah is IET. That nation is also called the branch, much the same way that our founding fathers are great men and they are nations at the same time. For example, Judah is a man and he is a nation. In fact, many nations. Abraham is a man and he is a nation. Many nations. The same way the Messiah is the branch. The branch is a man and the branch is also a nation. And that nation is personified in the Caribbean, with Jerusalem being in IET, with IET having the name that our Father has chosen to place there for the children of Israel to gather to. Verse 2, "And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord." And so too, in verse 2, we see that our Father is going to give the Messiah a prophet of his, a prophet of the house of David. He shall give him the spirit of wisdom and understanding. But our Father shall also give the nation of Judah, which is the branch. That nation too will our Father give the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of understanding. That is because the people in Judah are to learn the law and the statutes of our Father, and in turn they are to share it with the rest of Israel. And together we will share it with the rest of the world. And so in Isaiah 11, we are told that the nation of Judah that Israel is to gather to, that nation shall come out of the stem of Jesse. And that nation our Father will refer to as the branch. And the head, the king of that nation, the head of that house, the king of Israel will always be our Father, but the king of that house, that king is the Messiah, and he shall rule in the kingdom, in the new kingdom that is to come at the right hand of our Father. Let's look for more verses, because we are trying to figure out where is the gathering of the nation of the children is. Where should we gather to? We cannot gather to the old world. We cannot gather to ancient Israel. We have to gather to Judah. In Isaiah 24 verse 15 we read, "Wherefore glorify ye the Lord in the fires, even in the name of the Lord God of Israel in the isles of the sea." That is to say, in the islands of the sea. Our Father said in Isaiah that we are to glorify his name in the islands of the sea. His name is in the islands of the sea. What islands? The islands of the Caribbean, the islands of Haiti, Jamaica, and the rest of the Caribbean. Isaiah 60. Remember, we're talking about the gathering. Isaiah 60 talks about the gathering. Let's go to verse 8. "Who are these that fly as a cloud, and as the doves to their windows?" The cloud is all the children of Israel and all the kingdoms and all the continents of the world that are being gathered, that are descending on the islands of the sea. Who are these that fly as a cloud, doves to windows? That's the gathering of Israel. "Surely the isles shall wait for me." The isles shall wait for who? Shall wait for the Messiah and our Father. The islands of the sea. So this cloud that is descending, it is descending to the islands. Verse 9 says, Surely the isles shall wait for thee, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee. And the sons of the strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I found mercy on thee. And so in Isaiah 60, we learn that the gathering is going to be to the isles, unto the name of the Lord my God. The islands has the name of our Father. R-E-T, God is with us. Or Kiskeya, the high land of Yah, the high land of our Father. So that is where we are to go to. And in verse 10, and the sons of the stranger shall build up thy walls. Well, that is already happening. That's because we are in the last days. Even as we speak, Judah today is under occupation. Even as we speak, the sons of the strangers are building up the walls of Haiti. They are building it up for themselves, hoping to keep the people in bondage. But our Father shall come, the kingdom shall come, and shall put an end to that. But just like in verse 10, the strangers are already in Jerusalem. The strangers are already in Haiti. They are already in IUT. And their goal is very sinister. Their goal is to rebuild the Tower of Babel, right there with their headquarters in Haiti. They want to put their post by our Father's post. They want to put their mountain by our Father's mountain, where our Father is going to establish his kingdom. There, the elite of the world are in Haiti already, trying to establish their kingdom firmly here on earth. And so we see that Isaiah 60 continues to point to where the gathering shall be, and Haiti fits all of that, everything that we are reading right now. We can easily relate to Haiti, because Haiti, Jerusalem, is encompassed by armies. The UN is occupying Haiti, and the elite are there trying to build their kingdom. Verse 21, Isaiah 60, verse 21. Thy people also shall be all righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting. So in Isaiah 60, again, our Father's calling the people who are in the islands, the place where he has chosen to place his name. He has called them the branch of my planting. Our Father himself planted Judah, the house of David, in the islands, the work of my hands. Why? That I may be glorified. Not that Haiti may be glorified, not that Judah, the house of David, or Israel be glorified, but that our Father himself be glorified. That's why he said that the last shall be first, the first shall be last. Haiti is the nation that the world has passed for being last. Haiti is the nation that our Father has chosen, has planted, the branch of his planting. And that nation is the nation that is last, that shall be first. Now, if we go to Isaiah 49, we'll see, well, no, let's stay with Isaiah 60, this time verse 22. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. Our Father is saying that Haiti, though a little nation, and that nation shook, that lion, which is Haiti, the house of David, roared and grabbed Europe by the throat and shook her. Yet Haiti is a small nation, and our Father said that this small nation shall one day become a strong nation. That's because that is where the kingdom is coming to. That's because all of the nations of the world will eventually have to bow down to Haiti, to IET, to Jerusalem, Zion, where our Father has chosen to place his name. Verse 22 again. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time. So our Father has promised that he will indeed make this happen. Let's go to Isaiah 49. This is the Messiah talking, and he says, "Listen, O islands, listen, O isles, unto me." So the Messiah is talking to his nation that is in the islands, his nation of Judah. And he is telling them, he said, "Listen, O islands, unto me, and hearken, ye people from far. The Lord hath called me from the womb, from the bowels of my mother had he made mention of my name, and he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me." And so the Messiah is saying that the islands are to hearken unto him. And then he turns and he tells everybody all over the world that our Father has called him from the womb by name. And his name, according to the book of Isaiah, his name is Emmanuel. And his name means God is with me. His name means our Father, the Creator, is with me. The same way that his nation, Aet, means God is with me. So the Messiah and the house of David share the same name. Their names mean the same thing. God is with me. And that's why in Isaiah 49, the Messiah is talking to his nation, and he says, "Listen, O isles, unto me. The Lord hath called me from the womb, and has made mention of my name." Verse 3, "And said unto me, Thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for naught and in vain. Yet surely my judgment is with me, and my work with my God. And now saith the Lord that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him." That's the purpose of the Messiah, to bring Jacob to the Father, to gather Israel, to gather the elect of the world unto Judah, unto the holy mountains that are in the isles of the sea. "Though Israel be not gathered, yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my God shall be my strength." Israel is not gathered. That's because the Israel that is in the old world, is not the Israel that we are gathering to. Verse 6, "And he said, Is it a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel? I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth." So our Father turned to the Messiah and he said, "Is it a light thing that I should cause you to gather all of Israel to me? Behold, you shall gather the Gentiles also." And so today, because of the Messiah and because of the branch, our Father is going to use the Messiah and the branch. Boom. He shall use them to subdue the nations and to bring people from all over the world into his light, into his tent, and to give everybody in the world a chance to be redeemed, a chance for salvation. Let's go to Jeremiah 37, verse 22. "And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel." Well, the mount of Israel right now we know is scattered. But Judah is in the isles of the sea. The mount of Israel is the mount of Judah, is Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, the daughter of Jerusalem. And our Father said that I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains, And again, this points to Haiti. Haiti is a land that sits on mountains. There are mountains behind mountains all over Haiti. And amongst the mountains of Haiti, our Father has chosen a place where New Jerusalem shall descend, a place where he will build his house and walk among men. To continue, and one king shall be king to them all, and they shall no more and there shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into kingdoms. So Jeremiah is telling us that our Father will take Jacob and Judah and will make them one nation with their headquarters in Haiti, in IET. Let's go to Micah 4. Micah 4 also talks about the gathering unto Judah. Micah 4 verse 1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the Lord shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And so in Micah we just read that the day shall come that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. The mountains are the mountains of Haiti, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. The gathering of Israel shall be unto it, and the gathering of all the people from the nations of the world, including the nations of the Gentiles, those people shall come in with Israel to the house of the Lord. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. Let us go to Judah, the house of the God of Jacob, because our Father has his tabernacle in Judah, and he will teach us of his ways, because there in Judah you will find the Levites, you will find the priests of our Father, and there in Judah our Father will first teach the people of the land his ways, and then those people will teach the rest of the world his ways. For the law shall go forth out of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. So already that is just tremendous amount of evidence pointing to the islands, and specifically pointing to Haiti, IET, as being the place that the gathering of Judah, the gathering of Israel, shall be unto Judah in Haiti. Let's go to Zechariah 8 verse 23. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all the languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard God is with you. So our Father is saying that when the gathering is taking place, Spain, and then you have 10 people. When I say you, someone of the house of Judah, someone from the islands, can be in Spain. Someone of the house of Judah, someone from the islands, can be in Spain. And somebody walks up to you and say, I want to go with you because I heard that God is with you. And then before you turn around, other people are walking towards you, and they all different nations, different people are coming up to you, each one asking you for an opportunity to go with you to Judah, to go with you unto the gathering of Israel, because they have heard that God is with you. They have heard that you are from IET. You are from the land of Emmanuel. The land of God is with us. You are from the place that our Father has chosen to put his name there. IET, Kiskeya, the high land of our Father. And so when we look at Genesis 49, when we read that Judah's alliance, well, when we look at Judges and we read that Judah and Simeon fought the Canaanites and that our father sent Judah first, and when we look at all the other evidence pertaining to the name of our father, pertaining to the islands of the sea, pertaining to the mountains, when we look at all of this, there is overwhelming evidence that the nation of the children of Israel that our Father is talking about, when we talk about the branch, when we're talking about the gathering unto Judah, that nation is the islands of the Caribbean. That nation is personified in the island nation of Haiti. Now, Haiti, Judah, a nation. It was the southern kingdom. But Judah is not just one tribe. It is a tribe of Judah, Levi, and Benjamin. And so in the Caribbean, you would expect to find Judah, Levi, and Benjamin. And when you read the Bible, you find that Simeon also had territories that was given to it from the lands of Judah, from the territories of Judah, probably because Simeon had helped Judah fight for independence. Simeon had helped Haiti fight for independence, and so you would find in that same area one or two lands that was given to Simeon. Now let's take them. Judah is indeed the islands of the Caribbean. Then we have to find Levi, we have to find Benjamin, and we have to find Simeon. Who is Levi? In Genesis 49, we learn verse 5 says that Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. This is referring to the fact that when Dinah, their sister, was raped, they not only killed the man that raped her, but they killed his father and they killed everybody else in that town as well. At least they killed all of the men with the edge of the sword. And so Jacob is saying that Simeon and Levi are dangerous. Now, Simeon, we know, would go on to have many nations. But Levi, we learn in the Bible, Levi is not permitted to have a nation. Levi is not permitted to have its own kingdom. Levi was told that they would have cities in the territories of all the other tribes. So whenever a tribe became a nation, the most that Levi was allowed to have is a couple of cities within that nation. Likewise, exactly what you would expect as Israel moved around the world, as Israel colonized different parts of the world, and as their numbers swelled, and as they grew into nations, they would have followed the commandments of God. Let's go to Joshua chapter 14. This sheds light on it. Joshua chapter 14 verse 1. And these are the countries which the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed for inheritance to them. By lot was their inheritance, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses, for the 9 tribes and for the half tribe. For Moses had given the inheritance of 2 tribes and a half tribe on the other side of Jordan. For Moses had given the inheritance on the other side for 2.5. But unto the Levites he gave none inheritance among them. For the children of Joseph were 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Levites did not get an inheritance. They did not get their own land, aside from cities, which are more often than not became cities of refuge. We continue. Therefore they gave no part unto the Levites in the land, save cities to dwell in, with their suburbs for their cattle and for their substance. As the Lord commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did, and they divided the land. And so our Father is telling us, in the exact same way that he had asked Moses to tell Israel how to divide the land, that's the way that Israel divided the land. What that means is that the Levites do not have any nations of their own. There are no nations of Levites. You will find Levites all over the world, in every kingdom of the world. But you will find Levites of a high concentration in Judah. You would find a lot of Levites in Judah. And when Judah became a nation in the New World, that nation would also be composed of a lot of Levites. So where is Levites? Where you find Judah is where you would find Levi. Judah is Haiti. Judah is It. Levi is in the islands of the Caribbean. Levi is in Haiti, even as we speak. And we have a lot of evidence to show this. One of them is the other side of Israel, the idolatry, the worship of that which is not God. And if we look at Exodus 31, we will find evidence for Levi being in Haiti. Let's go to Exodus 31. Verse 18. And God gave Moses, and he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communion with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. That's how important the laws and commandments are. Exodus chapter 32, verse 1. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron, and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. They are saying, Aaron, make us a god, because Moses went up the mountain and he never came back down. We don't know where he is. Make us gods so that we can worship them. Verse 2. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf. And then he said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation, and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. What happened there is that Aaron, who is the father of the Levites, Aaron, to appease the people, made the golden calves. And the people began to worship the golden calf, because Aaron told them, this is the gods that brought you out of Egypt. Now, the word golden calf in French is ver d'or. Ver means cow, d'or means gold, of gold, d'or. Ver d'or is the golden calf. In Haiti, the word voodoo means and represents the same thing. The golden calf is the worship of that which is not God. It represents idolatry. And sure enough, in Haiti, voodoo also is the worship of that which is not God. Is worshiping something, someone, some object other than your creator, other than the Father. This is idolatry. That was the sin of Israel then, and of the Levites then. That's the sin of Haiti today, of the Levites of Haiti today, especially. And we see it manifested on the islands today. And it's in all the islands, not just in Haiti. It's in the Spanish islands and the English ones as well. They might call it Santa Maria or Obia, but it is still voodoo. It is still worship of the golden calf. The very word voodoo itself might very well be the bastardization of the word, of the French word vaudou. Or the word voodoo could simply have the same root as the word vaudou, because all the languages, most of the languages of the world today anyway, most of the languages of the world are heavily influenced by Hebrew, because Hebrew is one of the most ancient languages, maybe even the first. So all of the languages in the world today would have a great multitude of words that ultimately was derived from the Hebrew. And so voodoo and vaudou, the French form of the word voodoo, could have the same common root in the Hebrew, and they mean the same thing, the worship of that which is not God. And as we know, the children of Israel turn to the Levites even when they are committing their whoredoms. Even when we are committing idolatry, we turn to the Levites. And today, you would expect that if a nation represents Israel, or if a nation represents Judah, then that nation would not only represent the good part of Judah, which is our Father who is in heaven, but also the bad part of Judah, the golden calf, the verdure, the voodoo that was practiced by the children of Israel, the children of Judah, and certain of the Levites. We see Haiti does fit where you would expect to find Levites, because we have evidence that the people who committed this sin, their children are in Haiti today. The children, the people who built and made the golden calf, and who taught Israel to worship false gods, the children of those people are in Haiti today, and they are still doing the same thing, except today it is called voodoo. Now, so we have evidence for Levi being in Judah, being in the Isles of the Sea, being in Haiti and the island nations of the Caribbean. Now, who is Benjamin? In Genesis 49 verse 27, we read, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall hide the spoil. And remember, Benjamin is in Judah. So if Haiti and the islands is Judah, then Benjamin is in Haiti or the islands. And in fact, that's exactly what we find. We find evidence for a nation behaving as a wolf, and that nation today is the Maroons of Haiti and the Maroons of Jamaica. In fact, even before Haiti had her independence, there was a lot of Maroons in the island of Haiti and Maroons in the island of Jamaica who never allowed themselves to fully succumb to slavery. They fought off the British and the Spanish to the death to preserve their freedom. And a lot of the Maroons, their children still live in Jamaica and in Haiti and other parts of the islands today. And in Jamaica, they had made their stand even before Haiti got her independence. And in fact, one of the early leaders of the Haitian Revolution was a Jamaican by the name of Bookman. And Bookman was a Maroon. And Bookman made a prayer to our Father in heaven. But the people who have taught us, the people who have lied to us and deceived us, they teach us that Bookman made a prayer to the devil. That is not true at all. They said that Bookman sacrificed a pig. That is not true at all. Bookman, a person that was living in modern day Jamaica, but a person of the tribe of Judah, a Taino, Bookman was in the island of Haiti. And Bookman, just as we read in Genesis 27, that Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, shall howl as a wolf. Bookman sounded off the alarm, and Bookman did his part to rally the people together. He was not a general, he did not fight, but he certainly sounded the alarm. He certainly helped to rally the people together. And it was not in a voodoo ceremony, but it was in a prayer made to our Father himself. And so we find evidence for Benjamin in Haiti. And the tribe of Benjamin itself, you would expect that would not only be in Jamaica, but they would also be in other parts, perhaps in the mainland of Haiti itself and in some of the other islands of the Caribbean as well. And so tremendous evidence to say that Benjamin is in Judah, and Levi is in Judah, and Judah is in the Isles of the Sea. Well, how about Simeon? Well, Simeon, again, Simeon is important because we learn that Simeon has lands that originally was part of the lands of Judah. And today, if we were to look at the nations that could be Simeon, we would have to look at the other nations that Judah freed, that Haiti freed after Haiti got her own independence. Because where you see Simeon, that is reflective, or let's say the other way, where you see Simon Bolivar, that name Simon reflects Simeon. And those nations that Judah the Lion, Haiti, and Simon Bolivar freed in South America, those would be your nations of Simeon, namely Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador, Panama, and one or two others, and maybe even Santo Domingo, because Simeon had lands in Judah. So Santo Domingo, or should I say the Dominican Republic, it may be a part of Judah, or it may be a part of Simeon, because Simeon has lands that are part of the nation of Judah as well, or lands that used to be part of the nation of Judah. And so, we have spoken a lot, but we have also said a lot. And what we have said is that Haiti is Judah. And Genesis 49 bears this out. Judges 1 bears it out. And all of the words of the prophets that talks about the Isles of the Sea, that talks about the gathering being unto the place where our Father has chosen to put his name, all this is overwhelming evidence to support. And the islands of the Caribbean is indeed the new Judah of the new world. And it is unto Haiti that the gathering of Judah shall be. Haiti is the location of the daughter of Jerusalem. Haiti is the location of Mount Zion. Haiti is where the kingdom, the tabernacle of our Father shall descend, and where the kingdom of God shall be established. And it is upon the mountains of Haiti that our Father shall build his house, and there his feet shall walk, and there we shall serve him. And the sooner that we are able to put our prejudices behind us, the sooner that we are able to come to grips with the fact that we have all been lied to, the sooner we will be able to have more understanding as to what our Father wants us to do here in the latter days. Now, next time we hope to talk about, I hope to talk about Ephraim. Ephraim is very important because Ephraim represents Israel. Ephraim is the son of Joseph. If we remember, Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers. Joseph was eventually taken into Egypt. Well, today, Israel is in Egypt. Ephraim is in Egypt. And Ephraim is in the United States. Is right here in the United States of America. If the U.S. is Egypt, then Israel, Ephraim, is in Egypt. Ephraim is in the United States. And that is why you have so many different people all over America today. And all over the world, Europe, Africa as well. But a lot of people in America today is sounding the alarm that that we are to be gathering, that we are to look for where our Father has chosen to place his name. The alarm shall be sounded from Mount Ephraim, and Ephraim, Israel, is in America. America is the melting pot. Here is where you will find a convergence of all the kingdoms, all the nations, all the colors, all the tongues of the world, and all the dispersed of Israel also has sent members of their people into America. And so more than any other nation, Ephraim is in America. But that's for next time.